Aloha, my name is Garrett Ford. This is my lecture on Yondtian Cosmology in my novel Theories of Reality, Theoretical Physics. I received really good feedback on my first video, and I've decided to incorporate the constructive criticism so that I can have these lectures be a bit more easily understandable. So I thank people for those who commented. Please discuss and comment below so I can incorporate your feedback into future videos. And with that said, let's move on. First, an introduction. Our current understanding of reality does not allow for certain concepts such as time travel, nor the traversal into parallel worlds and alternate dimensions. However, with Yondtian cosmology, this all becomes possible, and I'll be explaining how and why throughout this lecture. And I hope you find it as interesting as it was for me to understand it and hear about as it was for me to develop it. So first, I just want to start off with some of the broad concepts in Yondtian cosmology. First, you're looking at the hemispherical understanding of reality is that you have a upper manifest reality, and then you have your lower unmanifested. And this will come into play and why it's important later. However, the main point of this is that from somebody on our side of reality and trying to observe the unmanifested alternative side or unmanifested underside, it would be the same as me in Canada observing somebody in Australia and seeing that from my perspective they're on the upside down, they're walking upside down, the laws of physics are backwards and everything, and by the same token them observing me, they would view the same thing. And so with this cosmology, this must be accounted for, because we're not only accounting for what our physics understanding is, but also the alternative physics of the other hemisphere of reality. So you have two hemispheres. Next is you're going to see a repetition of iterations in this model of reality. You're going to have the a lateral, a vertical, a diagonal, and then in the middle there's always a zero kind of point. And each of these are contained within another. So it's kind of like Matryoshka nesting dolls. And that is how we're generating our dimensions. And so I hope that that is easily understood. So you're going to have your horizon, diagonal, and then the central point, and the cube surrounding it is almost your the limits of perception, whether that's light or time or what have you. But I'll get into that later. And then lastly is the application of these theories into extracting exotic matter or alternative forms of matter from upper and lower dimensions, respectively, and how that can be achieved. The building blocks of that being achieved in our own 3D with one dimension of time or less than one, but I'll get into that in a bit. Space-time being perceived, so that's that part. And then lastly, there is the applications of that exotic matter into of course, what everybody probably is here to hear about is time machines. Time travel, what have you. Weapon systems and defense, as well as your energy production, and then of course travel. And so that is going to be what you can kind of expect from this lecture. So I do hope you stick around to hear about all the interesting things that I've developed here. For dimensional iterations, this is a foundational piece of Yondtian cosmology. And so first you're starting with a 0, which is your first 0, which is our void. However, with Yondtian cosmology, as I showed you at the start, we do have two hemispheres, and the edge of one is the start of the other. And so, yes, our void here appears to be, for us, the void is the singularity, the single point. However, that would be the upper limit of the other layer of reality. So, because they're both going to be linked with this. So, yeah. And so first you're starting with your void, your singularity, if you will, and it extends upwards from the void into other dimensions, and we'll be showing them here. So first is you have your X, which is linear matter. And so this is matter arranged in a line, kind of like a little centipede or a millipede or something. And that is your first layer on top of here. There is no top, there's no bottom, there's only a left and a right extending in either way. Next is you have your Y, which is when you are adding another layer, your vertical. So we saw earlier in my first diagram, this was your horizon, event horizon almost. This would be your horizon. And this is you're stacking this, the horizon on top of here, and it's creating a plane. And so now you've got an X here and a Y here. And so this is matter on a flat plane, much like the Carl Sagan Flatlanders video. If anybody has seen that, then that's kind of what this is looking like. And then we have our Z. So this is where we're adding that diagonal line. And so this is creating our cube, because it has a front, and matter can have a front and a back, and that extra diagonal is creating that. Ooh, I don't think I spelled that right. Oopsies. Anyways, X, Y, and Z. That looks like double. And whatever. Anyways, so you have your from the void, you're building matter first linear with the on the event horizon. Then from there, you're creating a horizon, which creates your first plane. And then from there, matter is stacking into cube formations. Now, at this point, rather than in other forms of reality mapping, people are adding time there. However, I'm proposing we have our first, I call it our tet, and it is a singularity of time. So this is the singular moment that you experience moment by moment, second by second, and this is a single speck of time, so to speak. Now time, I use the you'll see it's an illusion that we're constructing via three different kind of sense pieces here. So you have your perception of time in the past, and that is your memory. You have your perception of time in the present, and that is your senses. And then you have your perception of time in the future, and that's your imagination generating moments. And perhaps you could have the perception of time as dreams as well, as alternative, as almost beyond that. So you're looking at the singular moment of time, but you have all these different ways that you're going to be experiencing that. However, when you are creating time, the big T, this is your first, this is linear time, and this is, if you arrange all the moments of your life into a kind of almost like a flipped book, or each moment similarly so, then this would be linear time. You could also imagine it almost as like a film strip following your life. So you've got your baby born, baby grows, baby gets old, there's his cane, or not baby anymore, and then baby dies. Not baby dies, I guess human dies at that point. And so that is the arrangement of all those moments. And each of these, what we're doing here is you have, this is all of matter, right? Your X, your Y, your Z. And then you are creating the border of everything that is around that light, the light cube, so to speak, that is perceived is then put into time. So we've got your 0 in there, and your tet is the singularity of time, and that is the perception of all of this in one moment. And then that is created with these 4 different aspects into a timeline, and that stretches onward throughout your life. And so that's your timeline, that's your T. And so in the middle of the T is that tet. That is the tet, this is your T. And so at the middle of that, so we're going to there, you would also extend your time vertically. So this and is going to be time on a plane. And so now this is, as opposed to when it's time linearly, you have your time T and then your time U. And the same thing here. And so from here, you have not just your life, but everybody's life around you. So it's a very funny pun. It's you. Yeah, I know, I'm hilarious. Now, something in here that's really interesting is when you are taking linear time and you are arranging it forward and back, you can actually perceive linear time in your space-time that you're in now. And this is without taking any psychedelic drugs too. So what you would do to perceive linear time in your space-time world that you're in right now is you take 2 mirrors, and you stand in between them, you could perhaps perceive what it would appear like with those infinite reflections backwards and forwards. A mirror reflecting a mirror would show you the experience of every single moment reflecting the next moment and onwards and backwards into your event horizon. Because it's not infinity, because we just cut off at our event horizon, right? And so in the first thing, I talked about the horizon here, and the same thing that your void is beyond that. And here we're looking at a similar concept. So we are approaching that horizon there. So yeah. So you can do that. You can get 2 mirrors and look at all the different reflections of yourself backwards and forwards. And if you move, there will be reflections far enough back that are going to be a moment behind. and that would be a similar experience to perceiving linear time. Of course, it doesn't show you the future, but that'd be a different matter entirely if we could do that with mirrors. But anywho, so that's where we're arranging. That's that interesting part. I just wanted to divert there for a moment. Now, next here is you've got your U, which is a plane of the T and the U. So you've got your linear time, and now you've got your vertical time. So that's the timelines of everybody around you and their lifetimes, and however that's going to look. Because time is relative, right? And so people, maybe I hear them say, well, why are you making yourself the center of this? Well, because at any given place, you are the center of the universe, not narcissistically speaking, but you can only perceive stuff in your light cone based on where you are in the universe, either before you or behind you. And so that's something for you to understand, is that this perception of each moment, with time being relative, we have that singular time here, that singular moment. It is all confined to your senses and the senses of any object that you're using to sense. And so each moment that's being recorded at 1.337 seconds per second, that's the passage of time, that's your singular piece here, is that you're at the center of this cone. So yes, you are using yourself quite a bit for this, because what else can we use for reference but our own personal experience, because we are experiencing time, like I said, in this singular fashion. So next, we have this one, right? We're going back to here. So we have your T, we have your U. That's that vertical. That's every single, like, imagine each of these little divides as one of those cubes almost, but more than just one of them, but stretching on into eternity, backwards and forwards. And then same thing here. Now we are also going to be extending our T like this diagonally, and this is where perhaps we can get into a bit of the alternative worlds, alternate selves, all the different possibilities of what could have been, what might have been, who you might have been. So there's the you watching this video, and then there's the millionaire you, which won the lottery last week, and you're watching it on a bigger screen with maybe a newer phone. And this one is also a pun, because I like puns, and it's vous, which is the upper. It's like the superior kind of like with French, right? So you and then vous. So yeah, and also there's a bunch of puns you can do with it. Vous, like déjà vu. I know, I'm hilarious. But anywho, I should have done comedy maybe. Anyways, so this is time in a cube. And in here you can see you have each of these moments of all the light cube. So this is a sum of all the light cube that can be perceived in any one moment. Each of those fits into one of these little divides. And you are moving along this linear fashion, the vertical and the diagonal, in all different dimensions, in the very literal sense. And now what we are doing is we're going to be moving again over to here. And this time we are starting with our Q. Right? And so with this Q, you're looking at, this is a single moment of, so if we draw our lines around here, so all the possible moments of all the possible time of everything that could happen, would happen, might happen, may have happened, happened. Now you are moving that into a singular point, and that is your first Q. And savvy Star Trek fans might notice a reference here, but it's also the Q as in the Kopf, which is, of course, our hook. Line and sinker. And so what you have is your Q, which is at the center of your next nested dimensional progress iteration. So you have your singularity of all of this, all of that came before is combined into a singularity, and that is like an epiphany almost. So like when you might have had vast experiences in your life, I know I have, where you see that everything is connected, and how everything, is, you're almost feeling like you're one with God, perhaps, or a spiritual experience. Then that might be a good description. That singular moment of seeing all the connections everywhere, and the cause and effect of all things, forwards and back. That single moment is your first singular moment, in the same way that our singular moment of time, you seeing this moment and not seeing the moment before, and you're going to see another moment in a moment from now, that is your first cue. So now the next piece here is also you have your A, which is you're drawing your line here. That is your linear, your alpha, and that would be perhaps your perception of a linear experience of God, perhaps. This one, we abstract at this point to a level where I don't know if I can comment on it too well, except for maybe this might be what the experience of like a monotheistic experience of God, or like a deity, like a singular God would be, is a at A. That's that linear God, one day of God's life, perhaps perceiving all of this. For those of you who are familiar with the kind of a Maha Yuga, you have your great Yuga, and then this would be perhaps a Yuga. So a single age, perhaps. And here you are putting your next line down. That's your vertical, and that is, we're doing our omega. And so this would be perhaps this is your plane, and so perhaps this is a pantheon of gods, or perhaps a where is it? There we go. I know it looks kind of like for the Horde, but this is actually Alpha, Omega. That's the Kopf, and I know, not very original at this level, but you can only make so many puns in ancient languages. So what we have here is you have your plane, and that's your that's the expansion of that A, and then the omega. So, and then here we are drawing the diagonal, which is your infinite, and so this would be the like I've shown you before. You have your A, omega. This is kind of the cubed. God is God cubed. It would be infinite. So that's the infinity. So beyond, at this point, we're reaching one of our upper limits. And I'll go into infinities in another lecture, and some new in the advanced lecture about different infinities that you need to use for some of this. So you have your infinity, and this is kind of God cubed, which, if this is the Maha Yuga, then this would be perhaps the great wheel, the turning of cycles, and this is where perhaps the manifest becomes unmanifested, and the unmanifested becomes manifest, and the backwards and forwards, where you have 4 yugas up here. Those are the ages, the Hindu ages. I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I explained that. So the yugas are the ages. So you have Krita, Dvapara, and then you have your Treta, and then Kali. And those are the 4 yugas, and they repeat in a cycle. And down here, it also has 4 yugas, but they are on rotating on an alternate axis in the same way that the seasons are reversed. So during our Kali Yuga is the dawn age of the Yondtian underside. But I'll go into the underside stuff in the advanced lecture, since I don't want to go too far afield, as this can all be quite overwhelming, as I got some feedback that it's quite scattered. So I'm trying to keep it focused onto what's relevant to know the basics of this cosmology. So that's God cubed. That's the great wheel, the spinning of that great wheel, the cycle after cycle, and perhaps that's when the wheels reverse or inverse. But again, very speculative. And so all of that we are making into so that's a messy looking cube, I am sorry. And we are creating another one, and we are making our G. And so this is that singularity of beyond. And this is where, with abstraction, I admit I run into some hard limits. So the G is the center of the, so you're taking all of the matter that ever was, and all of the moments that ever was, and all the perceptions of all of those moments that ever could be, and that is at the center of this. And that's that G. And so you have here is your Aleph. And for those math buffs up there, that's that higher infinity. And then you have your mem. And then you have your final mem. And so, oops, that was a very messy mem. I'm sorry about that. There we go. So over here, you have your Aleph. And so that is your beyond on the singular, like the linear fashion. And then, that is such a messy Aleph. I'm sorry. I need to practice some of my Hebrew letters a bit more. And then you have your mem, and that is on that plane. And then, of course, you have your final mem, which is the cubed beyond, which, I mean, we can just almost speculate. And this is where we go upwards again, all of this. And this is where I throw up my hands, and we put it into that, which is the I, which is actually your ayin. And so just as Aleph is a silent letter of higher infinity, the ayin I am using here as the looping point that is both at above and below. So you're below the void is a yin, but it is like this until I'll go into that in the advanced lecture, but don't worry about it right now. And you'll be seeing that I again. And so you see you have your perceptional triangle being able to perceive all of lower dimensions through these light cones, the cone of light, the light cube, the cone perceives the cube. And yeah, so that is the dimensional iterations piece to understand with Yondtian cosmology. So I hope this was a bit easier to understand than the previous slides that I made. And we'll be moving on to the next next slide now. This slide I'll be discussing exotic matter, its production and possible uses, and why we're actually doing any of this. So the why, I think, is important. And unfortunately, why is a very recursive question. You can quickly get to the limits of science with it. So we're not going to entertain why too long, because why is a nice guest and a nice, even nicer servant, but a very poor master. So the why of this is, you're going to be able to break the established laws of physics. And so things such as time travel is going to become possible through using this, through creating exotic matter. And you're also going to be able to open up entire new vistas of reality. I mean, a world where you could meet where Shakespeare didn't die so young and he got to write another 40 plays. Where you could, heck, just go back in time and meet him and get him to sign your copy of whatever folio. I mean, yeah, it very, very much opens up a very vast universe. Because right now, we are in the center of our cone of light, and we're on this spiral arm. It's very far removed, and it's very difficult for us to get between the stars, as it were. And we can only see the stuff in a certain viewpoint because of our place in time and space. And so it's very limited. But with this, we can break those limits. So first is, I think my main proposed way of doing this is through the generation of a temporary black hole. So that could be through the CERN machines or other stuff, but you're going to have to, I think the black hole might be central to generating this. And so you're creating a temporary black hole. And with that temporary black hole, you're going to extract exotic matter from regular matter. So you have your humdrum 3D matter that's all around you right now, that if you're watching us on the phone in 2022, then honk, honk, honk. I know it's a funny joke. You can take this 3D matter, you move it towards your the generated black hole. There's a singularity there, and it will pull apart the 3D matter in spaghettification. I talked about this in the previous one. I think Neil deGrasse Tyson actually used the term spaghettification. I don't know if he did, but I'm going to use it here. So spaghettification is you're turning 3D matter into 1D matter because it's pulled towards the singularity, and it's reduced down to a single plane. And so with that, you can take this 1D matter and you can do all kinds of interesting things. And if you can generate 2D matter, and I think perhaps moving it at an angle or some sort of way so that the matter doesn't tear apart or spaghettify but bends, you may be able to generate 2D matter, which is I call it, it's essonite glass. And your 1D matter is a Vexon Pin. And the actual gooey void inside of a black hole is Hadal oil. And so what these are all doing is these can be used for different things in the breaking of these established laws of physics, opening up the universe and what have you. So first thing to understand is what are we trying to break here? Well, it's that darn speed of light. Oh, it's so restricting. It's the speed of causality almost, because we have, like I showed in previous, those cones, that square around our, you have your X, Y, Z, and then all of it around it, that is your tet, right? So that is your light cube. Your perception of all of that around you is your light cube. And that is being arranged in your T and onwards and onwards. So unfortunately, we can only perceive as far as this goes, which is the perception of our causal limit too. And so what we have here is you have your speed of light, which is 299. I'm going to round up. Meters per second. I think it's maybe more. Yeah, there it is. Now, so that's in space, right? That's the speed of light. But now the thing is, you're actually surrounded. Space isn't empty, nor is this like the air in front of you empty. You have bosons, you have quarks, you have all kinds of quantum soup around you. You have your string theory, if that's what you subscribe to, whatever. It's all around you, and I believe that that is actually lowering the speed of light from its maximum. And so space is not empty space with this model. And you need to cut away the empty space and create true voids. And that will allow for faster than light travel because the speed of light is just imposed by the cosmic medium. And that is that soup, that quantum soup that I was pointing to over there. And so if you scoop all that out, then suddenly light has no resistance and all kinds of really interesting stuff opens up. And so in a true void, we are not limited to 299 million meters per second. It might be infinite. Who knows? I don't know. You know, unfortunately, we won't know until we do it. And so I think it's so important that we start trying to find a way to create the true void, and that way we can be able to do that. Now, we also know that another thing is, you might be saying, oh, that doesn't make any sense. Well, no, it does, because light underwater travels at a slower speed. So we have underwater, ooh, there's the water, there's a fish. That is traveling at a lower speed than it does when it is in space. And so I propose that if we are able to cut away the cosmic medium, then we can go faster. And so what are we going to do with this going faster? Well, I think that if you're able to either create a void, beyond this, it could act as a door, in which case it might be like almost like going backstage. So like you've got, you know, reality is like a sphere, right? We got that. Remember the sphere, right? We did it earlier. So now if we cut out a true void, it's like creating a back room, and suddenly you can just, you know, instead of having to go all the way around to here, so like we want to go to, oh, I want to maybe go to the Neb. No, maybe Kepler 47. Yeah, Kepler 47 is nice. We could go to Kepler 9413. Yeah, that'd be cool too. So wherever we wanted to go, it's a far way to fly it, right? You know, if we're going to fly it long ways through the space, very far. But now if you are able to cut a hole with a true void by using, so you got your Essonite glass, right? You're able to cut away into 3D matter at an edge that is extra dimensional. And so you could saw through the cosmic medium and possibly extract and create, you'd mine almost reality itself. And so you get behind the scenes and you can just open a door here, open a door there, open a door anywhere, any time, any place, any when you want, perhaps. Or if that is ineffectual, what you could do is you, let's say, cover a vessel in your Haddle oil to perhaps reduce resistance with the cosmic medium, and then send that vessel on. But that's getting ahead of ourselves. So that's exotic matter in a nutshell. You have your black hole. The black hole extracts the matter. You shut off the black hole to, you know, once you start putting your matter, your 3D matter into it, and then you go from there. And we'll explore upper degrees of matter in the advanced lecture. But we're just keeping things relatively simple here. Relatively. And so what's really going to be cool is also So you got we have the there might be a new resource boom. So, for instance, we're taking 3D matter and we're moving it into this black hole, and it's doing all kinds of crazy stuff to it and spaghettifies it. Who knows what it's going to do to it? So I think you might see certain resources that are considered worthless, you know, like sandstone, right? Like, who gives? Nobody cares about sandstone, right? So you take sandstone, and let's say it gets spaghettified into a super hard glass pin. It's like a super Vexon pin. I don't know what we're going to call it, whatever. It becomes amazing properties, whereas if you put titanium in it, it cooks off into goop. Who knows? So your titanium, which is typically worth a lot of money, or gold is typically worth a lot of money, it might be not as valuable as sandstone. You might have sandstone wars, people fighting over deposits of sandstone. So that's some of the interesting stuff around exotic matter, its extraction, creation, and possible applications. And I'll be going into the more in-depth certain parts of applications in the next slides. All right, now this one's a really exciting slide to do, because I think that this might be what drives all this research forward, is the military, because the military industrial complex has always been a huge part of forward-moving science progress. You know, you look at DARPA, you look at the Operation Paperclip, and so I think that for any of the military viewers in my audience, this is why this is very important, and why you should care, is that the military uses for exotic matter and the Yondtian cosmology would not only revolutionize warfare. I mean, you wouldn't even have an enemy to fight, because you could travel back in time and erase them before they were even born, or they could even become a threat. So yeah, that's a big piece of all this. Yeah, anywho, so with military uses, I first want to go over how you can turn your humdrum 2D dimensional glass, your SNite glass. You have this, right? And yeah, you can use it as a blade, right, to cut away. I call the matter that you're going to be cutting away from, like the 3D spacetime, a causal matter, because it's still being affected by causality. But now once you are inserting this SNite glass and cutting it away, you'd be able to extract this matter, and you would be able to perhaps create doors, which for military applications, like I showed previously, you could get around a lot easier. And controlling a battlefield is supreme. You could have chrono troopers stepping in and out of different dimensions. And so what you got is you can create an SNite knife or blade. And that would be able to cut out causal matter, create holes in reality, or as we know it. And I mean, the question is how would 3D matter react to being cut away from it? I propose it might be created into what's called a sugar cube, because we talked about earlier that light cube, right? The light cone that everything's trapped in. That's how we're perceiving it. And so when you're pulling out that light, it would be a white cube of matter that could be used as fuel, perhaps. And so you could mine reality itself for fuel. And I mean, you know, we know that if you split an atom from your 235, you're splitting just only what is it, 90 kilograms of that stuff up, and you're creating a giant boom. Now imagine what would happen if you start cutting up this stuff. I mean, you know, you might be able to generate enough power to run a city off a teaspoon of it, right? So who knows? Or I mean, you could use it for, if you use that in a bomb, I mean, I mean, you know, there was it Tsar Bomba, right? This would make the Tsar Bomba look like a firecracker. So I think that would be a really interesting piece of this. Also, with the Essonite glass, you could bend it, right? Because it's going to be affected by, this is still going to be able to be affected by gravity in some ways, right? And so if you bend this, you could create a deflection shield, because any object that's coming at it is going to be meeting an object harder than the hardest diamond, because it's literally being held together with the forces that, you know, hold together atoms, right? And so it could act as a deflection shield on one way, and an impenetrable one at that. And it'd probably be, might be pure white, just because of, again, like we're looking at this white cube, right? So you have a deflection shield, perhaps. Or you could even use it as like a way to capture and reflect arms fire, laser fire, whatever. I mean, if people are fighting you with your same weapons, I mean, the explosive force, the only thing that would stop an explosion maybe from this would be creating cubes or domes to capture the explosion before it happens. Anywho, where was it? Yeah, so you could also create an invisibility shield, because like I said before, if you bend this in the same way, you know, you have your cloaking field, like where you have like you have that glass that you can bend, and it kind of weaves together what's on the other side. Well, this would be that times 1,000, right? Because you're flipping it over to the opposite way, where it's like a sprite backwards. It's invisible, right? So if this is forwards, this is backwards, then it would be making it perfectly invisible, whatever's behind it. And so, I mean, you probably have to choose, because I'm not sure if you'd mix a reflection shield and the cloaking field generated or cloaking shield. I don't know if they would be able to be working together. Like, you might be able to put a cloak shield around a reflection shield, but I would worry about if you have your blank backwards of the invisibility shield, right, touching the forwards of the deflection shield, if it might just fuse. But again, this is all very theoretical stuff, so I don't know how that would actually play out in reality, but that's how I imagine it. You probably would have to choose either or, unless it's a very experimental craft, which would have to be run by very ace pilots that know what they're doing. Otherwise, they might annihilate themselves or everybody around them, or, you know, maybe even the whole planet if the two fields touch. I don't know. Don't cross the streams, says the Ghostbusters. Yeah. Anywho, so that's the 2D matter. With 1D matter, yeah, you know, like the problem with this, the 1D matter, is it might look like you can't really use a Vexon pin for much, but you can actually, you heat this up enough or cool it, and then you fire it at an enemy. The pin goes through the body. So let's say you heat up to, you know, 3,000 degrees, you know, surface of the sun, something like that, and you fire it at somebody. It's going to pierce any armor. It's going to pierce any kind of no matter how dense it is, because it's literally at one dimensional, but it's still going to radiate heat or exert kind of coolness, cold, and, you know, if you make it super cold and then fire it. And so you fire that at somebody and they just boil away, in all likelihood, as soon as it hits the person. Or you fire it into a tank and it would have a hole big enough that you could throw a cat through. Oh, I'll draw a cat for you guys. You know, there you go. It's Schrodinger's cat. But he's free. Yay. So, you know, that's the Vexon pin would be useful for that. So that's just the basics of military use. I'll go into some further stuff in my advanced lecture, but that's just for you people. Oh, there is another thing I do really want to show this because it's too good not to share. And what it is, in this slide, I'll be discussing the uses of Yondtian cosmology when it comes to time travel, as well as dimensional travel. So what I propose is that you could create what I affectionately call a glass onion using two-dimensional matter and one-dimensional matter. So you have your Vexon pins, and then you're going to take 2D matter and coil it into a protective sheath around a pilot. And you seal them up inside the glass onion, and that's what you're going to be using to traverse the dimensions. Also, like I said before in the military slide, you could possibly just cut doors with two-dimensional matter. However, this door might actually move backwards through time. So it might be a matter of your door would be on a conveyor belt moving away from you and possibly swallowing up stuff that you don't want, because as we know with this, we're looking at time in that, again, that you have your X and your Y and your Z, and then you have the cube of light. And that is all perceived in a single moment as a tet, and that is arranged in a linear fashion with your T. And so if you cut something out from here, it's going to be maybe moving backwards or forwards away from you at a tremendous speed that you maybe not anticipate, and might do something that, like swallow up your grandmother and make you not exist anymore. So that could be one of the hazards of actually creating those void doors. But I'll leave all of the OH&S concerns to whoever actually gets to invent this stuff. Once the rockets are up, who cares where they come down? That's not my department, said Werner von Braun. So anyways, that's your 3D problem there. Anywho, so what you've got is you create this glass onion, and yes, that is a very deliberate reference because I'm a big fan of them. And so you create this glass onion, and you're going to use that to possibly travel either backwards in time by taking it and burrowing out of our causal, because we're looking at time not as the moment. You have to get your mind off of that time is this thing, and more that every moment is like that mirror facing that mirror. And so if you burrow beneath it and out of that gravitational temporal flow, then you could perhaps go backwards in time or forwards in time, or into alternate dimensions. And so when after it is burrowed through, it would probably be pitch black, like beyond the darkest abyss you could imagine, because time, light requires time to be perceived, right? Because it's moving, right? And now your time is simply the tet, you perceiving the momentary interaction of light hitting your 3D matter, creating entropy. And so that is matter degrading, which is your perception of moment-to-moment time going backwards, right? And so as you are falling and screaming, I don't think time travel would be as glamorous. I think it's going to be as like Doctor Who or Time Machine. I think the first time travelers, it's going to be the akin of shooting monkeys into space. We know we're never going to see these people again. It's going to be perhaps similar to deep sea diving in the Marianas Trench with a barrel, a cup of hope, and a scuba mask. So I really unsure about survivability of this stuff, because the forces beyond it is going to require a special suit which I affectionately call a scavenger. And so that's going to be a hazardous environment suit, sort of like Gordon Freeman would have worn. And that's going to keep our pilot alive inside the glass onion as they fall, or not even fall, because that implies gravity and direction. It's going to be, you can't, it's so hard for me to even express, because I'm describing on a 2D plane, this paper, something that is beyond like 4D, right? So it'd be, yeah, it's difficult, but I've done my best. So that's that piece. So that's our little brave hero traveling backwards into time, Space Monkey. Good job. Okay, so that's the travel use. And I mean, yeah, like I said, with the doors there, that could be a problem. But so you're using this, you're bending that into a shell. You're using the one-dimensional matter to burrow through, and then throwing it through space-time, which might actually be what all UFOs are. They're not actually here for us. They're not actually here for us. They are actually just travelers from the future. It's like a deer on a highway perceiving, you know, a car going past them and thinking the car is there as a death spirit. You know, UFOs might actually just be a vessel passing us on the temporal highway. And so it might be a very funny coincidence or very funny discovery is that no, it's just people going back to, like, you know, the Alexandria to read some books, and they're on a field trip to meet Caesar. They're not actually here to abduct us or visit us very much. They're actually just on their way to somewhere more interesting than our era. So yeah. Anyways, that's travel use in a nutshell. That's just all I think I'll go into for today, because I realize we're almost up to an hour. So yeah, that's that. Thank you for joining me on this lecture on Yondtian Cosmology. I think we covered a lot of different material here, and I hope you found it as engaging to learn about as I did creating it. So we have the two hemispheres of reality and how they are perhaps interact. We also looked at this figure, which I'm sure all of you are now very familiar with now. And we also looked at the creation of that glass onion and how perhaps we could use this to travel through times or alternate dimensions. And when it comes to all of this, I think R&D is going to be mostly driven probably by military, as they usually are. Though it might also be driven by the energy market, as that becomes more and more critical for clean energy, or perhaps even just travel. As we get more and more people, we're going to need space. And I mean, if you can go to an alternate Earth that just people never appeared on, then I mean, that might be a solution to all of it. But anywho, I hope if there's anybody in the audience watching this from DARPA or any other agency that is looking for the man behind it all, I'm on the make. Please hire me. Oh my God, please. My name is Garrett Ford, and this is some more about me, some things I enjoy. So I talked a bit about anime last time. I love anime. I watch a lot of it. So I'm going to talk about more of it today. I'm also going to talk about some of my favorite music, because I actually love music a lot. And I'm going to talk about also another favorite play, actually. And then I'm going to tell you about three different books I like, a fantasy book I like, and a sci-fi book I like. You can stop watching at this point. This is just me talking about myself for a bit, because 2022 and 2020 has been very lonely. And so honestly, I think this is I just feel like I want to talk about myself a little bit, because yeah, And then I'm going to talk about my favorite flower, my favorite flavor, and something I like to do a lot for fun. All right, so anime. Oh, what do I like with anime? I like so many. It's hard to decide. One of the first animes, actually, that I ever saw and I really liked was called Cowboy Bebop. And it's like a space western. You've got all kinds of people flying around doing all kinds of stuff. It's really great. It's episodic. It's probably one of what actually got me into anime was that one. And I watched it on Winamp back when you could watch. There was a program. Oh, I need to give context. There was a program on Winamp where you could watch streaming stuff. This was way back in the day, and so I watched all of it back in the day, streaming it on this Winamp plugin where you could people would stream it in Japanese, and so I watched all of it back in, I think it was Windows XP days. So I'm dating myself there, but anywho, that was one of my first animes. Favorite music. Geez, I like lots of music. I could do one all day, but I won't. I really like two things I really like is I really like Death Grips. Ex-Military is my favorite of their albums. And then I also really like actually Caro Caro Bonito. I have all the albums I've been able to get. I cannot get a copy of Bonito. Of Flamingo because it's been out of print for so long, but I have Graduation. I have the Time and Space, that one too, and yeah, they're just wonderful, wonderful artists from England. And Sarah, the lead singer, is just got a great voice. And plays, I really enjoy Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. That's one of my favorite plays, and I know it's like Hamlet and meets Estragon and Vladimir from Waiting for Godot, but it's a really good play, and I think if you haven't seen it, and even if you're not a play fan, check out the movie. It's got Tim Roth in it. It's got Gary Oldman. It's got what's his name? Richard Pryor. Not Richard Pryor. Richard Dreyfuss in it too, and it's just a delight to the senses. It's a laugh riot. Now I'm going to talk about books I like. I really like Roadside Picnic. That is one of my, I think it is actually my favorite sci-fi, up there with How to Lose a Time War, but I'll go into that one another day. But Roadside Picnic is brilliant. It's by the Strugatsky brothers. It's very fun, but it's also dark, but it's also beautiful because it doesn't deal with like high sci-fi where it's all about the brilliant whatever. It's about a guy who he breaks into a restricted area and steals extra dimensional matter. So, I mean, I gotta admit, I got a heart for the guy. So, yeah, Redrick Schuart, I believe was his name. But yeah, beautiful, wonderfully written, criminally underread though. So I tell everybody that I can to read that one. And then in terms of horror films, I actually really like not Jessica, Jennifer's Body. And again, like it doesn't get the yeah, it looks really goofy and silly, but it's actually really well done, very well done, very kind of spooky but funny but dark humor. So that's that. And then for fantasy, I talked earlier, I really enjoyed Game of Thrones, but who doesn't these days? Everybody's read them and what have you, and I'm patiently waiting for the Winds of Winter. I'm very excited. Despite living in Canada, where we get Wind of Winter all the time. Hi-oh. And then flowers, I have a peace lily. That's my little pride and joy. I have a peace lily, and it cleans my air, and I sometimes I like to mist it, and I take care of it, very good care of it. It's my pride and joy, my peace lily. And flavors, I really enjoy Dr. Pepper. That is, I think, one of my favorite sodas. I actually got 2 bottles in my fridge right now, but I don't drink it all the time because it's not good for your teeth, so I only have it on special occasions. And what I do for fun, one of my favorite things, I like to write. I like to write my books. And I hope if you watch this, maybe go and buy some of my books, because I need money. Do I need money? Yeah, buy some of my books and help me be able to write full time and come up with theories like this full time. But anywho, that's enough of shamelessly. I'm not begging you guys. If you want to, go buy them. I usually put them on sale onto the Kindle too. So buy some of my books, please, if you really enjoy this, because a lot of my books deal with this. Yeah. Anywho, that's that for me. So I will bid adieu to you, and as always, be seeing you.